All right, welcome in. This is, I guess, the first official drawing or Photoshop, or I'm not really sure what to call this, uh, journal I've done. I did a drawing while I was at work the other day, and I really want to ink it and kind of experiment with some ink in Photoshop, obviously. And I'm going to kind of show my inking process and talk through it a little bit, but mostly I just want to draw. So if anyone pops in and asks questions, I will answer them, but that probably won't happen because it's pretty fucking late. So instead, I'm just going to listen to music and vibe, if that is alright with you. So this is, let's see, I actually have to import all my stuff in, but I've set up my Photoshop the way I like. I've set my canvas, and I guess the first thing I'm going to do is, instead of this bright white background, I am just going to go ahead and fill that with gray so I don't blow my eyeballs out early on. Where am I want to save this? I'll save to the cloud document. So I have been toying around with an idea that I've been calling Dragonborne with an E at the end, as to not face any sort of copyright infringement. And it is a fantasy story about a dragon warrior, like a knight, basically, or a paladin. This is essentially inspired by D&D. His name is Skag Kriv Barash. He is a character that I've played in some of my D&D campaigns. And just the other day, I kind of penciled in something real quick with him in it. And I want to actually play around with some inks with him. And so I can actually have some legitimate artwork of him. I've done some artwork with him in it before, but that was, I think it was like 5 years ago, and it was very similar looking but different character. But this is our guy, and I'm going to copy and paste that into my original folder, or the canvas I have set up. I'm gonna blow him up so I can actually work with this. Now, I want to do a full body, so I'm going to scale it down a little bit and make sure there's some decent headspace there. Headspace is the distance from the top point of the head to the top of the canvas, and this should only really be about a couple inches. It kind of depends on what you're doing, but like if I did it down here, then there would be no purpose in having this space here unless I filled this with something. It could be anything really. It could be like if I had like a mountain and like the sun, and the sun was like down on him, or if it was totally dark and there was a castle, then it would kind of be like he's this castle or this mountain is kind of in the way of his hopes and goals and all that. And that's just visual imagery. That's just storytelling through imagery. But I'm not going to get into all that. This is a character concept, so we're going to go here. If I want to play around with that stuff later, I can do that later. But this is the initial pencil sketch I did. So you'll notice like parts of the sketch aren't completely filled out, and it's very, very sketchy, and that's because I either didn't really want to spend the time filling it out because I didn't have a clear vision in my head, Or, who knows? Maybe I was just tired. Either way, it doesn't matter because I can fix it here. So I've got my initial sketch layer here, which I'm going to rename. I'm going to press Control-Shift-U to take all the color out of it. I am going to mask part of it off, and this is kind of an unnecessary step. You can do this a couple of different ways. And I'll just click this button here to mask. This creates a mask, and so that cut everything off, all that sketchbook stuff that I didn't need. I'm going to press, there's a couple different ways to do that, but that's the one that I chose. So I'm going to press Control L, and this will give me my levels. And this is where you play with your with your black, your gray, and your white, which are indicated by these sliders. This is a pretty easy one. I'm just going to move these around until I get some like the sketch marks. You see like these smudges that are around that kind of show up, like there's that fingerprint on the upper right. I want to get rid of that stuff because it's not informing the drawing at all. And I'm going to move this over. I like that. I'm going to drop the opacity down to 50. Actually, let's go further. I'm going to go to 20. So it's like barely, you can kind of barely see it at this point. I'm going to make this larger actually. And this will probably, the size of this is probably going to change because I I'm not 100% sure how much of the character I want to draw, because obviously I left out the feet. I think I'm going to draw the feet just to have them in there. And I'm probably going to draw this out all the way. This is a great sword. It's supposed to be pretty big. If I measure it with my hand, just on the, with my pinky at the what do you call that? The handguard. There's another name for it. If it was a Japanese sword, it'd be called a Suba. But I've just, the crossguard, I think is what it's called. Alright, boo boo. God damn it, cat. every time. So if I put my pinky on the crossguard and then extend my thumb out, it would probably be about 6 inches. So if that's the case, then that's a pretty big fucking sword. So I don't know though. I don't like how that like makes everything else smaller. There might be another way to do that. What I could do is play with where the sword goes. I could reverse it. So I'm gonna show you what I mean by that. And I'll go into more detail as to why I'm like kind of mulling this over. So we'll say I said 6 inches, so that's about there. It's kind of small. I'll make that thicker so I can actually see that. If you're wondering what the music I'm listening to, this is a variety of music from video games and shows. This is from Castlevania, Lords of Shadow 2. And I like to listen to music that has to do with the genre that I'm working with usually. It depends on how drunk I am. If I'm really drunk, then I'll like to listen to something maybe a little more upbeat. I'm just kidding. I never get drunk. I don't know why you would even say that. Alright, so that's the length of the sword that I want, that I said from here to here. So let's see, how long is that exactly? I don't know, I'm not really sure why it's doing that. Photoshop's a weird program, it does shit like that all the time. So, how small? Oh, Jesus. I may rethink the length of this sword. There's a way to play with that. So like if I were to angle him, let's see. I wonder. That actually would be really cool to have him kind of holding it reverse. And then this is supposed to be a flaming sword that he carries. So a little bit about the character, I guess, is that he is a paladin of the Platinum Order of Bahamut. I'll probably have to change that for legal reasons because I seriously doubt Wizards of the Coast is going to be interested. Maybe. It'll be a long time before I actually get this project off the ground, but I want to start the groundwork now so that it'll be more complete when I actually do start on the project. I usually do these preliminary sketches and ideas years and years and years before they ever get off the ground. I'm going to turn down the music a little bit. But so he's a paladin. He's a lower order paladin, so I think he's a copper. He's a copper paladin, or just like essentially a knight. He hasn't fulfilled his oath yet, so he doesn't have any magical powers. That's when we meet him in the story. At this point, the way I've drawn him, this is like maybe about the midway point when he has some of his powers. One of his powers, since he's a dragon, he can not he can kind of control fire. It's a limited use sort of thing. He has the flaming greatsword from his father. If this were D&D, it would be known as the Flame Tongue, but I'll, for legal reasons, have to change that. And so it'll definitely be on fire when I draw it. I'll draw a version on fire and I'll draw a version that it's not on fire. Let's see, this is the blade actually that's supposed to be that long. Nah, that's too big. I think 6 inches is actually, that's usable, right? There's nothing wrong with 6 inches. It's totally adequate amount. So here. I'm going to use that to represent the cross guard. I'm going to marry these images together, drop the opacity down to 50. I probably have to change the shape of his hand. Yeah, I'll have to change the shape of his hand to have that make more sense. But this way we can see there's this kind of like cool cloth tabard thing that he has between his legs that like some knights wear, which I think would be pretty cool. I'm like trying to avoid saying that it covers his dick. He has other clothes on underneath that. I promise you it's not just a single piece of flimsy cloth. Flimsy cloth. Right. So there's a flaming sword here. So this is going to be one source of light. This is going to be another source of light. If I were to do a source of light here, I think that might confuse. And I think it would be really cool to have the light here, and then that way I get to highlight all these spikes and shit. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. So already I could probably erase all this. This I want to keep. I like this. So this will probably just be reversed here. And this I will turn. I've kind of segmented, because he has these segments of armor. There's a way to kind of like segment this and pose it almost like a paper puppet to get it into a proper position. And then I'll go back over with sketch or ink, however I want to do it, and make it so it looks a little more natural. So that's where I'll go with that. And if I'm a little disjointed with any of this stuff, get over it. This is my first one. You're going to have to be a little patient with me. I'm not a teacher by trade. Alright, so I've got these ink brushes that I really, really like. They're called Kyle because they came from some guy on YouTube. What's his name? I'll look him up real quick. Kyle Ink. Photoshop. It's like KNKL or something like that. Kunkel. Yeah, Keenan Lafferty. Keenan Lafferty. So he has a YouTube channel as well. The KNKL Show. You could find that pretty easily. And I forget which one of his videos he did. He does a lot of paint tutorials and stuff. And some of the stuff I know how to do, I learned from him. He's a very, very, very good artist. And he did some inks. I forget which one of his videos did it, but he had a bunch of inking and penciling tools and special effects that I grabbed from him. And I had my own before I found his, but once I found his, I just started using it because it's better. This one is a thick inking tool that I use all the time. I'm gonna probably try. I'm gonna play around with some of these. I'll probably play around with this one. It would be kind of cool to do because this is a pencil. Let's see. I'm like really excited to do this pauldron. Yeah, I mean that's a cool effect. You know, I'm gonna actually drop the opacity down even further. I like barely want to see it. I'm gonna probably ink this a couple times. I'm gonna rename this pencil. I'm like trying to hone my skills as an inker, so I'm gonna try a couple of different techniques, I think. But pencil starts off at 8 up here. You see this little 8 here. I usually work at about 10, and I have my sensitivity of my pen tool is usually pretty. I think it's just a standard. I went back to standard. I used to have it under pretty hard because that's what a lot of the other people I watched, they have their pressure sensitivity set to hard. But I don't press very hard. I've kind of worked past that because I will sit here and draw for hours at a time like most artists, but it cramps my hand really bad, and after a while I just don't do it. So I just keep it normal. Alright, so we're going to stick with this pencil one, this pencil hard over here. And we'll keep it at 8. And I'm going to keep the opacity 100, flow 38. I turned off, I forget what this is called. Airbrush style build-up effects. Yeah, I never use that. What does that do? Yeah, that doesn't really do much. Keep that off, but I am going to turn on this, and this, depending on how hard you press, will widen the effect. So if I press super light, I mean, you can't even see that. See, like super light and versus really heavy. So that's important to make your drawing look at least somewhat like a pencil sketch. I use that with the heavy inking brush as well. So, alright. I want to draw this fucking pauldron. And I'm going to be careful about connecting all of these lines because when I select this later for color, Actually, that's something I just thought of. Okay, so it's fine. I was worried that the texture of the pencil would make it difficult to fill this in with color, but there's a way around that we'll get to when we get to. Okay, let's draw this thing. So when I'm doing these, it's not just tracing. It is essentially tracing, but what I'm doing is I'm picking what details I want to include, and I'm refining the line work that I've already done. So like this, ooh, I gotta change that. Yeah, my erase was set to 50, and I definitely want 100. So these are two different textures, or yeah, this is metal, two different materials, and this is cloth. You can barely see it, but these two lines can't be connected. And there's a little bump right there that I want to get rid of. I might want to put that in later, but we'll go with this for now. And I could make this a perfect circle, but but I like the hand-drawn nature of it. Let's see if I can actually... That's probably as good as it's gonna get. I am gonna repeat that though. And I'll erase some of it so that they do kind of look like different lines. Yuck. I should also mention I actually have another program running called Lazy Nezumi. This guy here. It's another paid program subscription thing. I think you have to renew a license like once every year. It's like $30. What it essentially does is it smooths out your drawing or your line work. So sometimes when I want something to look especially sketchy, I'll do that. Especially when I'm like if I were to concept something on here instead of on paper, I would turn that off, and then I would, you have a little bit more freedom with things. And then if you turn it on, it like forces smooth. So you see the difference between the two. So on, I draw a circle. Off, see there's like a little wavy in there. It's not cheating. Okay, getting distracted. And I'm not 100% sure the details I want on this pauldron. I guess not that recently, I was at the Museum of Natural History in New York, and I saw these really, really, really awesome, I think they were Italian pieces of armor, and they had this really awesome filigree and engraving and all sorts of stuff, and I guess that's kind of where I'm going with this a little bit. I don't have any reference that I'm working off of right now. I'm just kind of going with the line work that I've already established. And I'm just kind of having fun with it. I'm not like doing anything crazy. And I do want this drawing to be especially detailed. Normally, like if I'm doing something for a comic book, I'd go a little bit less detailed than what I'm going to do here, just for expediency's sake. But this one I really want to kind of have fun with. So there's like a spike that I drew here that I wasn't sure I was going to include. I'm not including it right now. The spikes are super easy to incorporate later on. I could just, I mean, do I want that? Like, is that the shape? Is it like a morning star, or is it just like, yeah, I'm not really sure. All this stuff you can just erase later. That's what I love about digital art, is none of this is set in stone at all. Like, even less so than a pencil sketch on paper, because a pencil sketch with an eraser, you'll like gouge the paper. Just a little bit of visual interest there. I do like the idea that like he's taken some hits, so there's going to be some scratches and some dings. I might get rid of it later. I need to press a little bit harder with this brush. This is like the first time I've really used this particular brush. Ugh. So I'm not, still getting used to it. So you notice a lot of times I'll do this like W shape. I use it a lot in a lot of stuff. It like, at least to me, especially on metal surfaces, kind of implies that when you're drawing a metal surface, there's like a Terminator line where the shadow and the light meet, and it creates like a darker point. You know, the light is always, or the dawn is always darker before the night is always darker before the dawn. So when the light hits the darkness here, it creates an even darker line. And that's kind of what this is representing. And even if I don't keep that, I'm going to keep it now because it's going to remind me later when I put color on this. That is where the light is going to show, which could change, but we're just doing pencil work right now, so who cares? We're having fun with it. Let's see. Okay. I mean, I think that's pretty cool looking. This is cloth right here. And this is a belt. Belts, I don't know if I've ever drawn a character and gone away with them not having a belt of some kind. I think every single character I've ever drawn in my entire life has had a belt if they were wearing clothes. So belts are super important to learn how to draw. And it's such a small piece of the overall costume that it like doesn't matter if I like knock it out of the park. Because people don't really pay attention to belts unless they have a buckle on them. I'm not entirely sure how these pieces connect together in real life. I kind of know a little bit. Oh, whatever. Oh, god damn it. So this is, I guess, our first instance of Photoshop being a pain in the ass is every now and again, and I have to do this every time. So if I zoom in, it'll do that. So I can't actually zoom in now. So I have to restart the program. I have to restart the program, not the, like I can't just close down this. I have to restart the whole thing. And it happens all the goddamn time. Okay, good, we saved it on the cloud. I was about to be like, I better not have just wasted all that time. Constantly save your stuff. I have mine set to save like every 5 minutes, I think, something like that. So at the most, I'm losing 5 minutes worth of work. Alright, so now I can zoom in and out properly. Good. And something I'm thinking of right now is that the pencil brush might actually be good for like the cloth, and then the ink brush might actually be good for the metal. That's something I might play around with. Like I said, I was going to do both and then see which one I like more. It'll probably end up being the pencil sketch if we're being honest, because that has texture attached to it. And then I might blend them both. Although that'll take a little bit more work, but whatever. Alright. Let's get back to drawing. And I have to reset that. So all these little shadows and things that I'm adding in here are very important to the overall aesthetic. They really like give you the sense of it being two separate pieces, which is important, especially when you're trying to make armor look real, or at least believable. I don't really like how these are kind of all the same width. I'll go in there and probably fix that later. So it's a very heroic story that I'm trying to write. I always love the classic heroic stories, which I kind of feel like we don't get enough of anymore outside of maybe Marvel. And Marvel's been kind of dropping the ball lately on that stuff. This needs to be a straight line. And a little bit of pinched material. And I'm not sure if I want, I guess this is how because there's this hook here, but I drew this in harder, so that means that's the one that I intended. I really like these classic heroic stories. I don't think we get enough of them. And in this story, this is about a dragonborn warrior with cursed blood who is going to fight a vampire king to avenge the death of his father. Might not be the most original thing in the world, but I really don't give a shit. I think originality comes from the ideas within a story, not the overall plot in its own right. So that's why a lot of the music I'm listening to right now is horror themed. I like making these little scuffs. So I'm testing out these different ways to add these spikes and see which one I like. Because we could do that, we could do a straight line. I kind of like that. Because everything else on here is more or less straight. I guess these aren't, but let's see. We go like that. Yeah, I actually like that more. I don't like that little unhappy face that I put there. That's supposed to be like a dent in the armor, but it wasn't really selling it for me. I can go back and change all this. Technique I learned pretty recently. I think it was from David Finch. I think that's his name, right? It's I forget what it's how he call or what he called it, but it's whenever you draw something, any sort of line, you want to alternate the curve in order to give it more visual interest. So for an example of that is, so this line kind of goes like this. I do that curve, and then here I do the opposite. And then here I do the opposite, and then here I do the opposite. And now it has kind of this motion to it, and that's visually more interesting. And I tend to agree. There are sometimes you'll want to break that rule, as with all things. Like right there, I just did two of the same curves inward and then inward again. But this one's at a different angle, and this one's almost straight, so whatever. Doesn't matter. I kind of drew a nondescript fold right here. So it's up to me as the inker to interpret that. So that makes more sense. A little cloth bulge, another belt, and then we'll assume there's a little cloth bulge there. So I'm going to leave this hand alone for... Oh, God damn it. Photoshop, why are you doing this to me? You're not making yourself look good right now. Like, I can't zoom in right now. I have a pretty powerful computer too, so it's not my computer that's the problem. I've had this issue with Photoshop for decades at this point. I could go to a different program, but Photoshop is kind of the old standby for me. So I'm going to leave this hand alone for a little while because I'm not 100% sure where I want all of this to go. When I do draw that, I'll end up drawing that on a different layer most likely, just so I can kind of angle it. And then this hard line here, I can segment off here. I guess I could give an example of that. So I could just kind of cut into it. And if I was being real precise about this, cut and paste, now it's on its own separate layer. I can put it back where it was, or I can move it, and now he's got a bent arm. Maybe he wants to go more straight with it. I would have to probably do a little bit of finagling to make that look better though. I kind of like this look, just more bent, but I'm going to put it back where it was. I'll play around with that later. We've got more stuff to draw. And please forgive my sniffles. I have like perpetual allergy drip or something going on. I don't know how to fix it. Life is a nightmare. If you're wondering what it is I'm drawing exactly, he has like this scarf that he wears. This large red scarf, because that's like a classic heroic kind of look to him. He's a green Dragonborne, so he'll be all green. He'll have bronze at the top here. The armor will be kind of like a gray, silver, chrome. I haven't decided yet like what exactly it's made out of. He's a low-level paladin in his order. They don't like him, and they kind of sent him off to his death. So they didn't give him the best gear. So he's just kind of has whatever he has with him. So I'm not entirely sure what this is made out of. Steel or iron or something cheap. Or maybe it's high-level armor at this point. It could be something a little crazier than that. Or it's magical armor. Who cares? It's armor at this point. But these are just fun ideas to kind of think about. And since he's green dragon, the opposite color of green is red, so he's going to have a red scarf here. Red is the color of his father and his family. I tend to use a lot of red in my books now, just in my character design in general, especially when I'm making the main character. This is, I guess, so I have 2 comic books that I'm working on currently. Dragonborne is the second comic book. The first one is Bloodletter, and that character wears a red trench coat. This character is wearing a red scarf, like a flowing, billowy scarf that represents his family and his bloodline. And I won't reveal why Bloodletter wears a red trench coat, other than to say that it looks fucking cool. But red is a very stand outish color, so if you want to get noticed, red is the color to pick. He's got the heroic chin. I think in the script that I wrote, it says, yeah, how do I describe him? I'll look it up real quick. I'm only on like page 16 of the script, so I've got a ways to go. Sorry if I'm taking a little bit longer to do this, but I get distracted easy. Yes, Gag Kriv Barash standing in the light of the doorframe, a young green dragonborn with curved bronze horns, blue eyes, and a tall, powerful, athletic frame. If dragonborns were your thing, you'd be swooning. Do with that information what you will. I'm debating about the blue eyes. I kind of want to do red eyes because he has green scales, skin, whatever. And red stands out. But it would be, if I did red, it would be the second character I had with red eyes. The second main character I had with red eyes. So I don't actually know if I want to do that. We'll have to play around with it. I have a sneaking suspicion I'm gonna go with red eyes. And then so like all this stuff scales. You want to like blend them together a bit. So the shapes should kind of blend in. Maybe not seamlessly, but the more you deviate from that, the more unnatural it's going to look. I learned that lesson when I was in makeup school. Sculpting a demon, I had these kind of horns. She had these horns. If you're curious about what that looks like, that's on my Instagram at _SFX on Instagram. You might have to scroll pretty far to find it, but it's this demon character that I created called Vela the Piercer, I think was her name. She was supposed to be like the guitarist for Satan's for Satan's band or something like that. And she had these horns in the front of her face that go into her eyebrows and down into her nose. And I kind of just made them, see, like just erasing that one line there, and it kind of already looks a little more natural, I think. But maybe we'll, instead of making a straight line across, just erase that middle part. And I wonder what he'd look like with smaller. I actually kind of really like that. I'll keep that there just as a reference, and I'll go and fix that later. It's almost like he has eyebrows now, which kind of humanizes him a little bit. And that makes him look too old. He's supposed to be like in his early 20s. Tooth placement is important, or if I have them at all. Yeah, we'll have to play around with that. I really wanted to explore classic horror monsters with this story. I've always had an affinity for like the Halloween aesthetic, so like skeletons and pumpkins and witches and zombies and all sorts of stuff. Like I love that stuff so much, and I don't really get to do much with it in my actual life because I'm an adult man, and society frowns on adult men celebrating Halloween throughout the year. Life is unfair. But I really, this is kind of giving me an excuse to visit all that stuff that I love so much. I loved all that stuff as a kid and as an adult, as we've established. Oh, yeah, this is the song I chose when I wrote the bit about Skag drinking, making an ass of himself at a local tavern. This is from Kingdom Come Deliverance, which was a huge inspiration for starting this project. But I intend on documenting a lot of this project from the beginning to the end. It's going to be a long time before I make this thing, so I think just getting this stuff out in the air is important, especially since there's not a lot of resources when it comes to this sort of thing, unless you go to school for it. I'm going to have to play around with these shapes in here, because I'm not entirely sure how beefy I want his neck to be. I could give him, like, human proportions, which I think is kind of where I'm leaning. Or I could give him bestial, like, large bestial proportions, which would maybe make him a little bit less relatable to people, but it would make him cool. And as we know, cool tends to override most other things in character design. Alright, so that's part of the scarf. I'm not going too crazy with the details in here because I kind of want to see everything as a whole, and get used to this. I'm debating whether or not he should have the scar here. It looks cool, but like my last character had a scar. We'll leave that tooth there for now. I guess I could actually do this. Excuse me. Put it on its own separate layer, and now I can kind of move it. It's kind of funny, like, I guess I would go like right there, right? We'll leave it there. Not too far from where I had originally drawn it. Because I don't want at any point in time for you to forget that this dude's a Dragonborne. Now, something I'm debating on doing is giving him armor at all on his right side. He's supposed to be able to control fire. He has some limited magical abilities. And I had this idea about his hand constantly being, his right hand or his left hand, either one being constantly engulfed in flames when he shoots whatever magic he has. So if that's the case, then whatever leather or cloth he has would just burn off. But I do like the look of all these spikes and everything. I guess the leather I could replace with chains. That might be a cool look. And it would make sense if he's constantly using fire and standing in fire, and then it would make sense for him to use metal on everything instead of leather and cloth. Although the cloth, his scarf is supposed to be the remnants of his father's cloak. I can't emphasize how much I actually really love this character. He's just visually very interesting to me. And then he's different. He's a little bit different from characters I've written in the past. He's like more of an more of a goofball that becomes serious, whereas most of the characters I've written in the past are usually start off serious and end serious. But this guy's like a party guy. He likes drinking. He likes women. And he loves the consequences that come with a life of that. He's not a very good paladin. He, in fact, is in constant danger of breaking his oath, and his fellow paladins remind him of that. And that's because he hasn't. Part of the reason is because he hasn't really. He's said the oath, but he hasn't taken the vow, and a vow in this world and this setting. There are different types of vows that a paladin can take, similar to the D&D setting. So, if he were a D&D character, I think he would probably take the vow of vengeance, which is pretty frowned upon, I think, in his holy order. Because generally, as a paladin, you're supposed to do good, and the paladins that seek vengeance are generally not out to help people. Yeah, I'll have to play around with these shapes in here later. And this is an interesting shape here. This is supposed to be, originally I drew this as like part of his armor, so this was supposed to be like the bottom of a breastplate, but then I went to this shape here. I mean, I wonder if I could do, because then it's almost like dragon scales if I do this. Which is cool, but I don't know. I kind of like this because I already know in my mind I'm going to fill this in with a different color. So we'll have green, red, silver, or gray, and then maybe like a navy blue or like a dark base color. Something that like isn't very eye-catching. So your eyes are going to be drawn to this part of him here. Everything else is going to be, for the most part, gray or black or brown or some sort of earth tone or some base color or something that doesn't have a lot of color, so that visually you could tell what you're looking at. You're looking at a knight or someone wearing body armor, but this is where you're supposed to be looking, is right here. So this will probably be dark. I'm going to leave this shape here. I'm going to think about it. It could be chainmail. That could be cool. Instead of cloth, that would make sense. But chainmail is a bitch to draw. That would be a simple, like, God, I wonder how, if I was doing a comic book, I mean, I wonder if I could just do like that. That's not really chainmail. This would be more like scale mail, which is fitting. That's kind of cool. I might end up going that route. Ooh, don't want to do that. I'll probably end up doing that. It looks pretty cool. That was just a test. And then I could do this. So there's these other characters that he's with. Yeah, I'll come back to it. And I want to move. So before I talk about the characters, I'm just gonna, before I forget this, I get distracted easily. Um, God, I'm about to forget what what I was gonna say too. I like to move around the picture. If I don't know what something looks like specifically, like I don't know if this is chainmail or cloth or part of a breastplate or whatever shape this ends up being, then I'll move to something that I do know the shape of, right? So I'm going to try, because I like these shapes here, these spikes. I think they're cool. They're menacing. And it really like smacks of Dragon Age 2. There's a guy that wears armor. I think his name is Hawk. And he has very similar armor to this that I don't want to copy. And Hawk has one arm that's encased in armor and another arm that's free for him to use magic, and it's a similar concept to what I have going on here. So although it makes sense for him to not have armor on the hand that does magic, I'm going to give him armor in this early iteration. And if I don't like it, I can change it. It's something I had to come to terms with, or something I had to get used to as an early. I still kind of struggle with it sometimes. Earlier in my art career, I struggled with letting things go and just having fun with them. Every time, a lot of times I'll draw something and be like, that is how it is now, and I won't go back to it. And then maybe, yeah, just a little bit more interest there. Yeah, I'll have to come back to it. I can make him look really old by doing that. Yeah, he's been on the road for a long time. But yeah, just like coming up with an idea and sticking to it and not changing it no matter what. I've since moved away from that for the most part, but it's something that I like really struggled with for a long time. I'm just going to put in this shape for a belt here, and I'll touch on that later. This shape here, like anatomically, doesn't really make a lot of sense, but does look cool. So I'm going to draw it out, and we're going to play around with it and see if we can have it make sense, I guess. If it was more turned in. Because I was thinking like this was his bicep here, but that doesn't make sense. So if I move that there and turn this into his bicep here, and there's no cloth on this side, that part I'm gonna stick to that. And I don't want that armor on this side to match exactly the armor on this side. Asymmetry is important in character design, and I do that a couple of ways. Not a lot with this character, though, to be honest. Asymmetry isn't really part of the design, except for, I guess, where he keeps his sword, and his, like, gear is kind of on his left side here, and on his right side is more armor. I guess, I mean, I could stop the armor here and then just leave out this King Koopa Bowser armor off. Yeah, we'll do that. I want to put something here, though. I'm just not sure what. Whether it's chains or It would have something metal. Chains would be cool, but I don't know if this is supposed to be a character designed for a comic book. I'm not drawing chains all the fucking time. Like, I want to make this a little bit easy on myself. And part of character design that people don't think of that much is ease of use to have other people draw your character. So if I make this super complicated design, you're going to see a lot less fan art of it than, say, if I were to make Superman or Batman. Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man all have very simple designs, and they're very easy to draw, and they don't have like a lot going on. I guess Spider-Man does with his like the web texture on him, but you can simplify that and still get the same idea. You could take the spider webs off of him completely and people would still know it was Spider-Man. So that lump doesn't make sense. This hand is going to look fucked up no matter what I do right now. So I'm just going to draw it to get it out of the way, and then I'll fix it later. Everything's fucked up at first, at least with me. There's a lot of other artists I've seen who like their anatomy. They're a lot better at anatomy than I am. I'm, for the most part, out of practice compared to what I was in the past. I did just draw a whole comic book in, like a year or so, or like it was like 11 months. But I did not take any time to study any fundamentals when I did that. I just kind of rolled off the cuff with that one. He's going to have a bunch of fire in here. With the fire. Fire. Now that I've said it, I can't not see the King Koopa Bowser turtle shell armor that I'm kind of giving him. And now we're getting into like some of the more sketchy areas. Like I didn't fill out a lot of this because I wasn't really sure what it looked like. Oh, and because it was going to be covered by the sword, but now that I'm going to change the angle of the sword, I gotta actually draw it. We'll draw this first. This here will inform this over here. And this is a pretty well-defined shape. I like listening to this music because what I really want to draw in this series is this character fighting like large monsters. Like maybe other dragons or like some undead creature or some golem or something. Like classic horror adventure stuff. It kind of like, I don't know the story of Ghosts and Goblins, but it it reminds me of that. See, now I think if I, yeah, can't really do that yet. I could do this. Oh God, Photoshop, why? So you want to like, so what I did is just press Control I to reverse the sketch from black to white to black. In some cases, this would make it a little easier to see. How big is this image? Is that what the problem is? No, it's actually even, God damn it, I had it set to 600 DPI, and it's, for some reason, it's now at 300. Let's see. Watch this break my computer. I was wondering why everything felt off. Alright. Nope. Not you. Photoshop's really like been kind of a pain in the ass for like the last for my entire life, but since I started using a lot heavier in this last year, it's gotten worse since they've gone to subscription based stuff. It's definitely gotten worse. I'm not sure why that is, what they changed exactly, but I don't know. I don't approve whatever they've done to like destabilize the whole thing. It sucks. Okay. Let's see now that I changed everything. So now we're at DPI 600. What was it at? I'll have to open up one of the older files. What was this at? 3086, 4096. Should be easy to remember. 3086, 4096. Okay. Should be good now. I mean, because so it's a good thing that I didn't care a lot about doing the inks, or like I'm excited to do different styles of inking for this. Because changing the resolution and the DPI like that is going to change how the brush handles and how I draw certain things. Although it wasn't that much of a change, and it kind of doesn't feel like it's changing it that much right now, so we might be good. But like I said, I was gonna redraw everything anyways, so I kind of don't care. It's important to not care about what you're doing. The less you care, the better, I think. Now, the the actual advice I'm trying to give here is you shouldn't be precious about these things. If you need to change something, because like I even as an independent artist, like I don't work for anybody, I work for myself. I am very, very hard on myself about everything. So the less, like the more forgiving I can be while not sacrificing quality, probably the better. It would be different if I worked for a company and they demanded all sorts of stuff from me. I think that would be a serious problem. I might have a serious problem with that. I don't know, but if you're hiring, let me know, and I can change my morals pretty easily. But it's important to keep in mind that I'm in the concept stage right now. So if I don't know what something looks like now, it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. So I definitely want some underscales here. But this is this is a difficult shape. It's a tube. So I'll put that on a different layer. So I'm not entirely sure what these underscales are going to look like, but they should follow some sort of pattern similar to what I've just drawn here. You will never walk alone. You can always face me. I don't know the words to this song. Talking to any artist about... I've never heard any artist talk about this, but the amount of times that I see it in artwork, I think will make my point for me. This like bandaged sort of thing over like a handle, I see it so constantly in every single comic book I've ever read in my entire life. It shows up somewhere at some point. You see cloth like this wrapped around a pipe or a handle or something to that extent. People fucking love drawing that particular thing, and I do too. I put this on a separate layer because this obviously is going to move if the sword is going to change the direction. He's like if he's holding the sword in a different direction than what he's currently holding it, then I'm going to have to move it. This reminds me of this particular texture and shape and everything reminds me of what's the hockey guy's name? Casey Jones in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and just Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in general. This is like, I think this is Donatello's staff as well, which I've shockingly never drawn. I don't, at least in my mind, I can't remember ever drawing the Ninja Turtles, but I would fucking love to someday. That would be amazing. I'm not really sure what this cloth is here that he has. Since he's a paladin, I could very easily just say, oh, you know, it's... Oh, excuse me. It's like... I don't know. Like, what are those things that they have in Warhammer? They're like protection seals or something like that. Which I debate putting that on him, Because I don't want to steal that aesthetic, even though that aesthetic's really cool. Okay, so that's more or less the handle, the back handle of this great sword that his father carries. I guess actually this piece of ribbon doesn't have to be his. It could be something his father carried with him. You know what? Maybe, and that's, maybe it's a piece of his father's cloak that he carries with him. This is like the only piece that's remaining. See how lore writes itself like that? Automatically, I just gave this fucking tiny piece of cloth that I had not thought about for, I don't know, maybe like more than 5 seconds, and then I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe it actually had significance. So that is the handle. I'll just put that in there. Handle. Alright, fuck. I'll draw the hand on a separate layer because it's for sure moving. Very, very, very basic shape. Nothing crazy. Woo! Because if he's going to hold it at the angle that I want him to hold it, it's going to be kind of almost like a broken wrist angle here. Like if he's holding it behind his back. Like if we were to go even more extreme with the angle. Something like that. I guess that's like, because it needs to fit. It needs to fit on the fucking screen. Probably something like that. I lost my train of thought. That's gonna happen a lot. You know, his hand has to move down anyways because it makes no sense that this hand is longer than this hand. I just thought it would be really cool if, like, this was an actual morning star down here. Like a big ball with spikes on it. So that way he could, like, slash people with this and then bash people with the morning star. I might actually do that. I'll play around with that. Because there's supposed to be, I think, like, at least 5 different weapons he uses pretty proficiently. The greatsword being the #1, and then I was going to give him a flail, a shield, probably like a halberd. And then I'm not really sure what if the 5th one would be like a hammer or something like that. Just anything that you can really use to smite your enemies. To smite them right in the face. So if the hand's going to be down here, then I need to make this larger. I gotta make sure my proportions are correct. But before I get into that, where's the hand? I'm just going to put this in its own group. Get it out of the way. Go back to this. And I'm going to make this belt. I want to make this gear that he has here on his side. I always like the classic, I forget what type of belt loop these are called, but the large pirate belt buckles. I always draw super simple ones, but honestly, instead of one, let's go a little fucking crazy here and give him 2 of these doodads. Oh shit. That's how you know he's serious. Too short. It should overlap. Yeah. And instead of erasing this stuff, I'm just going to mask it out, because I might want to come back to it. And I did put that on a separate layer. I'm going to combine it though. I put it on a separate layer just because I might not like the shape of it and want to get rid of it. I probably shouldn't have these 2 lines mixed together, but it'll be fine because I am about to draw the belt that goes behind the belt. I'm actually probably way too zoomed in for this. You want to be a little bit fast when you draw lines like that. I'm switching between the different masks because the details are on different layers. And I should honestly, let's duplicate that. Apply the mask so the mask doesn't go anywhere crazy. Oh no, I'm thinking of something else. We'll delete the mask. And try to get it, it's going to rotate a little bit. Like right about there. Move it with the directional keys. Like right about there seems about the realistic width of it. I'm just going to erase it instead of doing a mask. Break your own rules. There is no God. And that is how you overly complicate drawing a belt. I'm just going to combine it. I could redraw that. I don't really care. None of these are rules. I forget what these holes are called. I wonder, I'm going to switch to white so I can see it a little bit easier. And then I can just reverse it back to black. So it needs to be further out. It needs to be like that. Because belts have like this secondary locking loop of leather just to kind of hold it in place. Reverse that to black, combine it to there. And, you know, it might look a little janky close up like this. Like, look at that piece of shit. But then I back out and you wouldn't notice. Still on white. I'm just erasing to kind of keep a uniform sort of shape there. Now, I don't really know a lot about what he has on the side here. I would assume, let's see, what would you realistically have? Maybe some health potions. You know what, let's have some fun with this. Okay. So let's logically think this out. So he's got his fucking blue jeans that you wear under everything. So there's the belt to hold them up so you're not showing your ass to these vampires and demons. I kind of like that shape already. Like, no, for fuck's sake. I kind of like that shape. For fuck's sake. Photoshop. I kind of like that shape just because it organizes it and gives you something easy to look at without, like, it makes sense. Obviously, it's stupid in this in this early stage, but okay. So that's on a separate layer. So this is our basic underlying shape that he has going on under all this other stuff that I'm about to put on it. So let's say, I'm sure he would have a knife, like a small knife. So we'll just, I'm going to do these as different colors too, so they're kind of easy to. So he's got a knife. He's got a kniff, maybe for opening packages in his mail. Put it on another layer, and let's say he's got some healing potions. Maybe that looks like this. Classic healing potions. Maybe he's got a couple of them. Maybe, yeah. Maybe that's where that goes. Maybe I like it there. We won't talk about what that looks like. I guess that makes a little more sense. So that's one thing we could do. We could also do, maybe this is a big leather bag he has, like a big dump pouch. It just keeps a lot of shit in. I'm like, where is he gonna keep his wallet, you know? Maybe he's got a couple of them. I did kind of draw that, like if you see these shapes in here, that is kind of what that is. It's like a little utility pouch that he has. I know he does have a backpack that he wears, but like we're not really showcasing that here. He is like a classic D&D adventuring type, so So I just duplicated that and combined it just to make it a little more prominent. So something like that makes sense. There you have like a series of small pouches and stuff. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like he has claws. It doesn't really make sense that he'd have a knife, except unless it was like a silver knife or something like that. We could justify just about anything. But the only reason why I'm like hesitating to do this is as cool as it would be to have. I mean, I guess there's other places I could put it. Like in his boot or something. It would be kind of cool, but no. We'll leave it out for now. You just have like maybe the handle of it coming out or something. But the reason why I hesitate to put in like these like, yeah, these like health potions, as cool as they are, they're visually a little distracting. Because I would personally make them glowing red. But like I said, we want the focus to be on the face and on the sword, and I mean mostly the face. When the sword's on fire, the visual interest is definitely on the sword. When the hand's on fire, it's on the hand. When neither of them are on fire, it's on the face. So I think I'm actually going to go with these pouches just because they're not visually distracting. So I am going to press Control U and turn the brightness all the way, or the lightness down to all the way to just turn them black. I can do the same thing here. I'm not really sure about this shape. It makes sense. Like it'd be something like that. And this would go up a little higher. Be further out though. Because these things aren't that small. Put inks above everything. Yeah, I'd keep his little fucking granola bars in there. And his pen and paper for when he wants to take notes. And his money. What little money he has. Maybe something like that. That seems like it's sitting a little more naturally where you would actually have that. If I put it all the way up here, that seems uncomfortable. Because then all this shit is going to be rubbing into your side when you're walking around, and that would suck. I know firsthand that that would suck. But I don't know if I like this traditional belt design here that I've always seen. I'm wondering if we could do, because in the background you can see I did like this cross belt. I'm actually going to draw that in and see what that looks like. Where I draw it in white. Do I want the buckle to be here? I guess you want it to be pretty centered. I'm just going to draw a square and then move it around. I don't know. Having something like this would suck, wouldn't it? I wonder if I flip it, if that would make more sense. You know what? Yeah, and then I can attach it to this. This would be a separate thing. This wouldn't be on like his belt that's holding his pants up. This would be like a separate thing that you could drop. Okay, I like that. That actually makes sense. Then this would go up higher. This would still kind of suck to carry on you, but maybe it has like a quick detach or something that you could just press and drop it. But then again, maybe he has like smoke grenades and stuff. I love gadgets. This is it's starting to like encroach on my Bloodletter character a bit because Bloodletter has the same thing. I'm just a big fan of Batman, and when I was in the army, I loved grenades. I fucking loved grenades. They were my favorite thing to play with, and I never got to play with them because no one trusted me. I don't blame them at all. I don't blame them. I don't blame them in the slightest. Probably a good call on their part. But I did actually at one point have the most grenades out of anyone in my entire company. I had like at one point I had 24 grenades on me, whereas your next person over they might have 4. I think most people only had 2. I no shit had 24 on me at one point. I would no one ever said anything about it. I would lend them out to squad leaders and other teams. No one ever just like, honestly, if they had just asked like, hey man, you have too many grenades, you need to share, like you need to like give those out, I would have done it, but no one ever said anything, so I just kept them, hoping for the one day I get to use them and level a city block. But it never happened. It's for the best it never happened. I like that. And it's cool too because like, so something else to pay attention to is where your lines are pointed. And so right now and not every line has to do this, but you notice all the lines are kind of pointing, like all these spikes are pointing this way. These spikes are pointing this way. They're kind of going away from his face. This is pointed kind of going this way. It even has like an arrow. There's an arrow there pointing. All the arrows are pointing this way. So it makes sense that I would put the sword here, because then that's telling you to look at the sword. And the sword, like I said, when it's on fire, it's going to be what draws your eye. When it's not on fire, you're probably still going to look at it. But the color is what's going to make you look at his face when the sword is not on fire. Okay, so now that I have this more or less blocked out, pouches are something, if you want to get into comics, you're going to have to learn how to draw pouches. I'm actually going to turn off the sketch here because it's just getting in the way at this point. I'll turn off that belt. Okay. I'm actually going to turn these inks down. And you got to be careful when you do this. I'll actually make a double, because when you do that, or at least me, I have a tendency to, when I get something on another layer, when I get it to a place that I like, I will then immediately merge it to whatever is below it without checking the opacity, and sometimes it'll change all the inks to 50% or whatever opacity I had, and that kind of fucks up the whole image. You can fix it by like duplicating, but then that kind of pixelates the line art a bit, So you don't want to do that. There's probably other ways to fix it, but whatever. Okay. So we got this little bump here. And which part do I want to draw first? I guess I'll draw like his hip. That is just a shape that I'm putting there. That is not his hip. This is not exposed. He'll have like, he probably will have cloth or something. Yeah, maybe it will be exposed. Who knows? Dragonborns aren't afraid of showing skin. So there's also something I'm trying to keep in mind is a rule of threes. So his face is going to be green, which means by the gods of color and art, I should show the color green at least 2 more times, or at least on a macro level 2 more times. So one other way of doing that is the tail, and another way could be the arm. This arm could be, or this hand could be completely encased in armor, so as to not show it. And if I do that, then I should probably put armor on his feet to not show his green feet. That would be the gods of art rule of oh, for fuck's sake, Photoshop, dude. That would be the gods of art. That would be what they demand. You don't have to do that, as is implied. I want it, like, it's actually like acting up quite a bit more than it normally does. It's never this bad. I'm wondering if there was some sort of update or something that did that, or if maybe I didn't get like a driver updated or something. Who knows with computers. So I've been doing a lot of these like pirate buckles that's actually super thin. I call them pirate buckles. I'm sure there's an actual name for them. So I kind of want to do something different with this one. Because I said it was a quick detach. And maybe because like that seems like a piece of there's not a lot of tech in this universe, and that seems like a more modern feature is to have something be quick detach. So maybe he got it from a dwarf. Yeah, maybe press these 2 buttons and it just falls apart. Well, if that's the case, then none of this makes sense. That's kind of cool. I'll keep that for now. And see if I want to change that later. Yeah, and this, I mean, again, would have this like extra piece here. That would either go, or that could go behind it, because I have a quick detach belt that I wear to Neotropolis. If you don't know what Neotropolis is, it's a cyberpunk festival that's in the desert, and the 3rd or 4th week in April. It's really fucking cool. Super LGBTQ friendly. Super awesome. Check it out. But I wear like a quick detach belt there, and the extra piece that you would use to cinch up this whole thing goes behind it, not in front of it. So it actually has a pretty clean look. Yeah, let's go with that, because otherwise you'd have this thing over here, which you could do. Maybe I could do that. We'll keep it for now, which means there would be this guy here. Yeah, Neotropolis isn't necessarily an LGBTQ event, but there is a lot of that there. So don't be turned off by that if that's not your thing. Yeah, I kind of like that. That's a little bit more visually interesting than just having an empty segment there. So then how does this thing work? Fuck it. Hey, it looks cool. Yeah, if this were D&D, this would be like his bag of holding. That's not where that would be attached. That would be this flap. There'd be a flap here across the top. So instead of just redrawing that, I will just add a lump here. And another lump here to signify that it's being there's being pressure put on it. There's a bunch of other characters I want to draw. I really want to like flex my character design muscles on this particular set of characters. There's another character that I want to do pretty soon called Zorlakine. She is a dark elf. She works at a circus. But she's like a sword dancer, and she's like a fencer. She is obviously dex build, and she kind of looks like her design is based off of what are they called? The Vatican guards. I forget what they're called, but like the Swiss Vatican guards that have like the stripes. You know what? I might actually give her like a halberd or something. But she kind of looks like that with like the foppish hat with the large feather in her cap. I'm really excited to experiment with that character because I think she's really cool. I haven't fleshed out her character so much. I just kind of know what she looks like, but I haven't really gotten into her as a person so much. I guess like I have a little bit, and what I've written is that she's like very stern and mean. Maybe not mean, but she's like very unforgiving. Okay, I can drop the sketch of the belt, and this is going to serve our purpose for now. I do want to add stuff to this, because any good adventure would have, like, this would be like where they put their trinkets and stuff. I did have that knife at one point. Where did I put it? Yeah. So maybe he has a knife that's kind of tucked away, maybe between these two pouches. Something like that. It'd be yet another thing telling you to point at, or telling you to look at the sword, if I kind of put it like here. And I wonder, he could have like, yeah, like little trinkets, like a little claw, or like, maybe he has a dream catcher. Maybe he has a foxtail. That's not what a foxtail looks like. Some feathers or something. I don't fucking know. You get the idea. Just something to kind of inform the character a little bit more. Like, I mentioned the circus a little bit. Maybe he has like some stuff he had while he was a strong man in the circus, which I won't get into story-wise too much about that. Nah, fuck it. It's so far away, and no one's watching this right now. So he, in order to go undercover, he has to pose as a strong man in a circus in order to get to the castle where this vampire resides. They're going to perform for this vampire lord, and his way of getting there is to pretend to be a strong man. And so that's where he meets Zorla, and that's where he meets a cavalcade of countless other characters. I think this would be funny if he's just showing a little bit of hip. I'm wondering how like this would attach, or if this is part of this here. Because if it's going this way here, then it would make sense that there would be like another piece that goes off here somewhere. And maybe there's like a Y shape here that is attached to this bag. Let's see what that looks like. There's a surprising amount of logic that goes into this. At least the way I do it. There's a more efficient way of doing what I just did. Because see, it's all... I could just do this. Lasso it off. And paint it black. You want to use something that has 100% flow though, because that pencil has 38% flow, and that's why I was getting those little artifacts in there. I like that. And you know what, it makes sense with what we're doing. I'm also going to erase this until I can make sense of it. Where is this hip piece? Yeah. That was bugging me. Don't want anyone to say my guy has bitch hips. That would never do him dirty like that. Unless it served the story, and it's not that kind of story, so. Let's see. I'm going to play around with these shapes a little bit. And that's why I like this thick brush here. It's because it's at 100% flow, and it's just so smooth. I love it. See, now I wonder if he had... That would make sense. If he had some sort of like leather pads here. Because, man, having all this stuff while you're running around and fighting and stuff, having that rub on you fucking sucks. So then this is probably cloth then. I guess it could be leather. I don't know. Let's drop this down to 10% and let's play with it. I do like the belt. I'm definitely going to change the design of that a bit because it's not quite what I'm looking for. I think this needs to go up a little bit because it's kind of at a weird angle. You know what this is giving me vibes of is in Skyrim, is it Greaves or Pants? Some of the armor, I think it's the Iron Pants. I guess it's closer to what I'm like, because I'm looking at a picture of it. I think it's actually closer to God of War Pants. God of War Kratos Pants. Because he has these like leather pieces that ride up a little bit high on him, and it makes sense. Absolutely makes sense because you don't want any of these belts and gear and any of that crap rubbing on your hips while you're running around and kicking ass. They may look a little goofy by today's standards, but they make total sense. Okay. So I've got a concept I'm looking at. You can't see it, but I guess I could try to pull it over. Let's see. No, that's not it. How do I do this? We'll ignore that other stuff that's on there that I clearly didn't mean to show you. It's strange what pops up when you look up Kratos in his leather pants. So this is what I'm talking about, these things here. This is a concept for Kratos for, I believe this is Ragnarok. It could be the first one, it could be God of War, which I understand is not the first God of War. You know, we'll go with something like that. I kind of like it dipping like this instead of it going straight in like this, because that would look like that. I don't really like that. So we're going to go with this dip instead and assume that it attaches back here, maybe with a big belt buckle. Or it would be... how would that attach? You know, I guess we'll just go with this here, because like I said, I know what this looks like for the most part. So then this attaches behind here somewhere, either as part of this bag. Would it go up? Would that make sense? I guess. It's kind of visually a little interesting, because then it's like, oh, he has this thing that he can kind of attach bags and stuff to. So then that kind of changes that design a little bit. This is why you need to label your layers, because then you lose track of stuff super easy. And I'm not doing this the most efficient way. Doing it this way, like I said before, is going to create like little artifacts and stuff. And so when it comes time to select some of these things, it's going to be a little bit harder. I'm not super worried about it. I love the grind. I'm going to, for now, actually, you know what, since I already know this is going to move, I'm going to be a little more precise in selecting this. And that's something that's going to be nice when I redo this with the other ink tool, is that, or the ink brush, is that all this design work will have already been done, so I don't got to think about any of it, and I can just draw. but I might keep the sketchiness of it. So I put that on a separate layer so I can move that around. This is gonna have to be bigger. This is gonna have to be like this. Yeah, that already looks better. And I'll just say arm and get rid of it. Alright, now we've got our reference. We've got our belt. So I can attach this now to inks. So now it's all one piece. I don't got to worry about it anymore. We'll put this here. What is this again? Oh, this is the one I'm working on. Okay. So. Now I kind of know what this looks like. So let's do whoop, shoop, boop. Now this, where this is attaching here, I don't really like, because it's giving like a false, I kind of like it there, a little low writing. Yeah, otherwise it's like visually a little confusing. And so here, now we have even more lines pointing this direction, going this way. It may seem like a lot of things to keep in mind, and that is because it is. There's a lot more work involved in concept design than people think. A lot of people think it's really easy. It fucking isn't. These are really simple designs. Like I said, I want to change them up and make them look cooler, like they were made by hand or something. And maybe we could put like designs and stuff on them. Nothing too crazy, because again, I don't want to take any of the focus away from the face. Like you look at Kratos over here, and automatically your eye goes to his shoulder and his face, where these tattoos and big muscles and the stern look on his face. This is where your eye looks. It's like right here. Okay, let's see. I'm like trying to suss out, do I want it to be layered like this? Oh, Skag is getting drunk again. Is that what I want it to look like? Yeah, let's do that. I'll have to go in and refine this a bit because this looks a little clunky. Yeah, so like this was made by someone other than the person that made this. Otherwise they would have... now that I look at this, even though it would be quick to attach, I don't think it would look like this. This looks a little... Maybe... interesting to see a Dragonborne with a large belt buckle, large Texas belt buckle right here. But we could make some sense of that, and it would reflect this piece he has here. So maybe I could come up with some sort of symbol or emblem. Maybe this is like his rank would go here. And maybe the rank would also go here. I actually like that idea. So I'm going to hang on to this shape, but we're not going to do anything with it, at least for now. I'm going to go back to this. Now, would this have fur on it? Because I've seen these with fur on them. Fur is a difficult thing to draw for a lot of people. I don't think it's difficult for me because I've drawn so much of it. And I draw it almost the exact same way I do fire. And you'll do like, the way I draw it is, I'll do like this shape and then that. And then I'll try to do something opposite and then like a devil horn. And then you can do, and this is more like a classic, something you would see like on a motorcycle. But you know what, this sort of like, and you know, I kind of repeated the shape here, and you want to vary it up as much as possible. I keep going back, yeah, and see, like, you want to make sure you're not stuck doing that. When I was working for an arcade company, we had to design these pieces of plastic that were supposed to look like fire, and I drew pretty much exactly this design you see here. And we laser cut the plastic to look like this, so it essentially looked like that. And then I heated it with a hair gun, or a hair dryer, or a heat gun, and then got it so it was like all floppy, and then I wrapped it around a pipe to give it a perfect circle, and then we would inlay that into what was essentially like a ball bucket. It was kind of a difficult process, and I was kind of the only one who knew how to do it. I'm very curious as to if they still make those. But yeah, I pretty much use this exact design here for it, and I use that almost the same design for hair, although it's not nearly as like, it doesn't have these like devil horns in them. We'll keep it. We'll keep it. And then I'm gonna actually do this. Mask that out. My boss one day was looking at the fire design that I did, and he was like, I don't know if I like that. Here, let's do it this way. And then he himself drew it by hand. And it looked like that, essentially. Except worse. I just did a better job than he did. And it would have been absolutely impossible to laser cut. And he stared at it. I was in his office when he was doing this, and he was showing me how it was done. And I just stared at him while he fumbled around. And he was like, you know what, we'll go with your design. And I was like, okay. As you should. He's a very tough man to work for. Very much a person who without doing your job for you, without having ever done your job, will tell you how to do your job, and we'll have cameras pointed at you to make sure you do your job at all times. It's a very difficult person to work for. So I'll do these like little plant pod shapes here sometimes. I'm thinking about it too much now. Ugh. But you'll see this little plant pod shape when I'm doing hair. Yeah, that's good enough. Good enough for the government. Okay, I mean, that could use some finesse too, but you know what? We'll keep it. We can keep it for now. Get out of here, Kratos. Actually, I'll keep him around. I'll put him down here as our ref. Now, get out of here. Okay, so we still have a bunch of stuff that we haven't drawn and connected. We've been drawing for about 2.5 hours now, kind of on and off. I can get rid of this. I do think that would be more like that. I'll take pictures of my own hands a lot, and kind of like draw those as reference. But there's plenty of like hand reference out there, so most likely find something that you need that you can use. Yeah, this is interesting. This little piece in here I was not expecting to have made at some point. And the idea that this is his rank actually really intrigues me. Now I have to... The problem is coming up with the symbol for the platinum order now. Or maybe I could just come up with the rank. So if he's copper, I wonder what, like... Is there a symbol for copper? Okay, I know it's... So copper is Cu on the periodic table. Doesn't really... Okay, there is a copper alchemical symbol. It's very interesting looking. We'll pull that up and use that. I wonder if instead of just saying copper symbol, if I say copper runic symbol. Okay. I don't actually... So I'm seeing this, it looks like a, it looks like a fish. I don't think this means copper. I think this means something else. But regardless, the order isn't copper. And is like, it's like a hair away from a swastika. So I'm probably going to stay away from that. And instead... Gee, where did I just put that? Okay. So I'll set this to multiply. Multiply gets rid of all the white in your image. I'm just going to put this here as a placeholder. Just to see what that looks like. That actually looks kind of fucking cool, I think. I wonder if I can play with it. Does it look better like this? Yeah, I think it kind of does look better like that, standing upright. Okay, that or that. Either way, it's going to make an X. No. I like this one. And again, this one's kind of pointing this way. Oh, there goes the cat box, or the cat feeder. So this hand... it would be something like that. It looks kind of painful. And he would be holding it at an angle. He wouldn't be holding it straight. That's one thing with weapons that I have an issue with, is a lot of times I'll draw them almost completely two-dimensional. It's getting late. It's like 3 o'clock. Yeah, I'm getting burned out. So we'll revisit this another time. Probably pretty soon. But, I mean, it's pretty fucking sweet, I think. I will turn this back on, switch that to that, bring that up, kind of overlay that. Sometimes I overlay it to just see, like, if there's any details I missed. Because the sketch has a little more life to it. Like, it has all these little greebles in here. And there's some uncertainty to it. So sometimes I'll put that back on and I'll like sketch some of these back in. Like if I did that real quick. And give it some texture. Because as it is, it's pretty clean. I'm like second guessing some of this stuff. So just to show you what that looks like. So it gives it a little bit of texture. And I can go back in there and, you know, play around with that a little bit more. Because we haven't really played with line weight yet. And I guess to show what that looks like. So line weight, I'll usually, so I'm at 8 right now, I'll usually go almost twice as much. And I'll outline the important bits, especially if they overlap something else. Ooh, that is something that I'm not sure looks great with this brush. So like the stuff in the foreground you would put with a heavy line. Like you would outline the whole thing in this kind of heavy black, but then in order to distinguish his face from his shoulder and this cloth here, you would outline that. I wouldn't do that with anything else in here except for this handle and this hand that kind of overlaps these parts here. And then I would probably do that here. Maybe. Just to showcase that these are two separate parts here. And then a little bit here. But you would only do that with like the major features of the anatomy. At least in my style, that's the only time you would do that. Yeah, I do think that would probably look better with the ink, this one. I'd have to be a little bit more careful about it. Something like that. Yeah, so like that. Doesn't seem like it makes a big difference right now, but it will. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to do the outline with that brush instead of the pencil. I'm getting distracted. See, shit's too fun when I'm actually drawing stuff I want to draw. Sweet. Alright, I'll have to play with that later. But yeah, so that is a look into my art style and my workflow, and it's a little chaotic in the beginning, but eventually it will all make sense, I promise. There's a lot more that goes into this than people may realize, but that has been the first look at Dragonborne as well. I'm really looking forward to it. I think I'm probably gonna go for like a little bit of a Battle Chasers style. I really like that style of comic book. I think it's really cool. Even though I've never read one, I like the art. I should probably buy some and check it out. But I'm going to continue doing this as kind of like a video journal thing, just to keep me honest about it, I guess. Let's see how far I take it. All right. Consider checking out my comic book at bloodlettercomic.com, and I will see you later. Peace.